8:59 scheduled to tee off.
All coming up.
We're going to tee off our weekly conversation with the one, the only from the Athletic, Sam Amick. Good morning, Sam.
Good morning, Dave. How are you, my friend?
Good. How are you?
I'm trying to get ready for you, brother. I'm a little tired. I'm out here in Salt Lake City. So not going to lie, dragging a little bit, back-to-back games.
From all the clubbing last night?
In Salt Lake.
Yes, you know how they do it out here.
By the way, home of Bonneville Corporate. We, of course, love Salt Lake City and everybody there. So you're back-to-back. I know you're out there. You were the whole Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell thing. How's that going to shake? Here's my starting question, Sam. Here we go. We've landed on it. Will Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell both be starting for the Utah Jazz next season? Go.
You guys tell me what happens in the playoffs.
Lose in the. I'll go optimistic. Lose in the Western Conference Finals. 4-1.
Interesting.
To the Suns.
They lose 4-1.
4-1 to the Suns in the Western Conference Finals. I don't even know if the brackets would allow that, but let's.
I don't know. I mean, it's sure. I'll say they break it up. My thing about them, I mean, and there's more there too. To be honest, I think Quinn Snyder's future certainly is unclear. But like the Rudy thing is, there's certainly a lot of chatter about how if they do fall short again, that he could get moved, and the front office has changed. Somewhat recently, Danny Ainge is now a huge part of it, Justin Zanuck. So anyway, with Rudy, though, man, I'm in that camp of just be careful what you wish for. And that dude is really good.
Yeah.
And the human personal dynamics that I did spend, some of this trip trying to better understand are, they're tricky, but it's like basketball wise, I don't know how you get value for a guy like Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, in your findings there too, Sam, I'm curious because Quinn Snyder's name has come up. Not only, will he stay there? Is he coveted by other teams? What are you kind of finding out about his future, or is that also hinging on the playoffs for them?
Yeah, it just feels like there's been a lot of reshuffling, reorganizing internally, and like everybody is, kind of reassessing, you know what I mean? So it starts at the top. Ryan Smith bought the team a couple of years ago now at this point, and he is a real, mostly thumbs up in terms of the job he's doing, but he's also a very hands-on, young, ambitious owner. And so that's a change. Then you have Dennis Lindsey was, out as part of the front office, and like I said, Danny Ainge in. But so it's like everybody is figuring out what they want and how it all functions together, which is a long-winded way of saying, I don't know with Quinn. He's been there 8 years, and I think, I've been close to their situation. There's just feels like for all of them, there is a kind of a collective, price that's been paid. You go through the COVID situation, your team is at the epicenter of that whole drama, then they have a disappointing end in the bubble. They have another disappointing end last year. So it feels like some of these, shortcomings and failures have taken a toll on a lot of them.
Sam Amick of The Athletic joining us. I'll get ahead of the Kings fans who are about to text saying, oh, my goodness, if Quinn Snyder's available, that's the guy. You're going to get a lot of that if he does become available. Terry Stotts. And we hear the other, many other names, too. Let me switch a little bit to the Kings. I know, Sam, the problem with talking to you about the Kings is through no fault of your own. If it wasn't for you being local, I don't know that you'd have any reason to know anything because they're just not a priority as somebody who covers the NBA on a national level. They're not relevant. They're not a priority. And really the only time they are relevant and a priority is when they do something silly or make a giant trade. But I will ask you just an open-ended general question so I don't pin you on anything. Are you hearing anything? Hearing anything on coaches? Hearing anything on direction in the offseason? What is your general 50,000-foot take on the Kings as they come down to their final two games?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, on the coaching front, certainly anticipating a kind of a wide search this summer. Don't anticipate just forging ahead with Alvin. So we'll see what that looks like, and then it is, and you and I, like always, we talk off air about stuff. There's just a lot of, around the league, there's been a fair amount of questions and chatter about, even the front office, like, where does that stand? What does Vivek think of the group? To my knowledge, that will continue the way it currently is. Because if you go back to the trade deadline, they do the deal with, Sabonis and Tyrese and Buddy. And while it certainly didn't spark the wins down the stretch that they were hoping for, the sentiment, as you know, was that it had created something where Sabonis and Tyrese the front office would have the chance to see that through. And then on top of that, there's also a sentiment around the league that, like, you got to let, Monty McNair and Wes Wilcox and that group hire, their own coach. They chose to hold on to Luke and elevated Alvin. So haven't had a legitimate starting point with a new coach, if that's in fact the direction they're going.
Yeah, I'm curious about the position too, based on 16 years of missing. I know it's one of 30. Do you feel like they would have the same kind of look that other organizations might have that are looking for a coach? I mean, or would other coaches, I guess, as potential candidates, turn down the Kings because of what they've gone through their last 16 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of, yes, there are things that will disincentivize good candidates. Now, do I think that they're going to have a hard time getting good candidates? No, I don't. We've talked about some names in the past on the show, and I think the interest will be there. I mean, certainly, just hypothetically, since we were talking Utah, like, all right, if a guy like Quinn decides to do something new, even though he's under contract still, but like the highest profile folks are not going to be flocking to Utah. I'm sorry, just to Sacramento. But there's always questions about Vivek and kind of as a coach, like, can you trust him as your boss, and what is that dynamic like? And so a lot of considerations, but you're also going to have the idea from some coaches that if you're the guy that gets them back in the playoffs, then they're going to be throwing a parade for you. So there's two sides of it.
Sam Amick joining us. Just to follow up on that, though, do we as fans and maybe even local media, do we overrate the whole? I don't want to go there. I don't want to coach for that ownership. I don't want to be a part of that dumpster fire. How much of it is that, and how much of it is hey, it's 1 of 30. It's 1 of 30 in the world, and it doesn't matter. I'm going to get paid. Maybe a King's tax. I get paid a little bit more if I'm a bigger name. But do you think when it comes to you talking to coaches, coaching agents, et cetera, that ownership plays a factor? A big factor in coaches deciding if they're going to come here or not?
Yeah, I think it does. Although I would probably argue that I feel like it's a bigger factor for front office people.
Yeah.
That relationship, because then you're talking, this is a weird way of putting it, but like at least with a coach, the time comes when he's got his players, he's got his team, his game plan, his strategy. And then you're out in a public space playing the actual game, and the coach, people can see if he's in charge, if he's pulling the right levers, and being allowed to do what he does. The front office thing, what you come in concerned about is it's all behind the scenes and in the shadows. Like, I want to trade for this player, and I want to do this deal, and this is just a broadly speaking type of thing, but the owner is he going to, kind of swoop in and tell me otherwise and not let me do my job? You can get hamstrung and handicapped, I think, far more as a front office person by an owner than you can as a coach. So I think it's less of a factor, and also a shorter term outlook. There's a lot of coaches that are like, all right, if it's a 2-3 year run and I make $5 million a year, like, it's been real. Appreciate it, as opposed to, I think front office folks a lot of times are, hoping that best case scenario, hey, I could be the person in that position for 15, 20 years if the relationship is good,
Sam, on the Laker front, obviously officially eliminated the other night. What a disappointing season for them, where they had higher hopes than where they ended. Where's the out? What's the fix? I mean, likely they'll can Vogel, right or wrong, but what else? How do they How do they repair this for what they hope to be a better season next season?
It's ugly, just in terms of like the options or lack thereof. John Hollinger at our place wrote a good piece last week about the lay of the land with the Lakers and just the general idea that every option that people kind of assume is available to them, like most of them are not. It's whether it's reasons that trading him is going to be very, very hard, and the fact that like John Wall is essentially seen as like the only person, like if you're going to actually trade him for another player versus stretching and waiving him, that John Wall is like the only deal out there that makes any sense. But then you immediately get into the philosophical clash of like, why exactly would the Lakers start giving up future first round picks just to get out from underneath, 1 year of Russell Westbrook? And so I don't know. I spent some of this trip talking to kind of rival executives, I guess we'll call them, about that situation. And it's just, there are some people who are starting to feel like there might be a run it back type component to next season. Maybe just, not on the coaching front, obviously. Frank Vogel is expected to be dismissed here at some point. But yeah, but that does fly in the face of what I've been told from, I would say, like the LeBron side in terms of what I expected, what he thought was going to happen. So I don't know where they land, but they're extremely limited in terms of the cap and in terms of free agency. It's going to be a lot of minimum contracts again. So I don't know how they get out.
Sam Amick's getting out of this interview right on time. You can read him at The Athletic. Go to theathletic.com or download the app for wonderful, wonderful sports coverage, analysis, and all curated in a nice, fine form. Sam, who knows? Maybe our never mind. Our Sam, thank you, and really looking forward to talking to you next week.
I have no idea where you're going.
I'll tell you off the air.
Tell me later.
I
Sounds good.
Take care. Bye.
All right. Thanks.